Hello and welcome to the 10 Desires Extra Guide. I'm going to be doing things similar to Mountain of Faiths, where I'm going to go through a run, the run that I believe best showcases what's needed to do, how you play through it, and just how I felt best performed. Didn't really deviate off route. Maybe got some bad RNG, but still managed to get through it. And so that's what I'm going to be doing. This is going to be the Sanae extra run. And I'm just going to commentate over it. And then later on, I'll go over into different shot types. After this run, I'm also going to go over how others perform. Like, Yomu is a very different shot. So I'm going to go over some of the stuff that she might do differently. And stuff like that. So let's just get right into it. So start of the stage is just streaming. Depending on your position of the center, they come from a different direction. Not that it matters. These guys will come from both sides, and you just want to speed kill them as fast as possible. They just come from left, right, left, right, left. They come in a pair, and then they come in a trio. It's just, all of this is sort of random, so you're just going to want to dodge and speed kill the best you can. It's not too difficult, but sometimes it gets nasty. Here the enemies will come right, left, and they'll shoot a pair of one lane. They'll then aim 2, 3, then 4. After probably 6 of the one lane ones, I'm not really sure exactly how they work. I haven't really counted. But after that, you'll get 2, and then you'll get 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2. They come in 3 pairs of 2, and then they'll start shooting 3. So you just want to generally stream along, and then the second they all like fire, they're all going to fire at the same time. So once they do that, you want to quickly move over to the other side so that it doesn't become clustered at some point. So like right there, I know right here, they're about to shoot, so I move quickly over. Then they shoot 3. 3, 3, and then they shoot 4. And for 4 and 2, they're aimed around you. So if you stand still, you'll be fine, which is what I do here. I time it right so that I can just stand in the corner and not have to deal with them. And then we get to Nue. Nue's first spell isn't too difficult. It can be tricky to learn, definitely, but it's mostly fine. I try to stay as high up as I can and to follow her as best as I can. If you're down low, the bullets like curve more and it becomes uncomfortable, while the gaps are bigger down here. Up higher, the gaps are a bit tighter, but it's less unpredictable, I'd say. Or less uncomfortable still. So you just follow her the best you can. It takes a bit of practice to get used to it, because like I said, they move in weird ways. And so it can be tricky. Then you just take care of it. Second spell is, in my opinion, the hardest pattern in the whole stage. It's the hardest part. And luckily, it's early on. If this was later on, it'd be a lot more of a pain. But we'll get to a spell card that, despite me thinking it's a bit easier, it is more annoying because of how far in it is. So she'll shoot like these sort of lanes, I guess, but they're like randomly rotated just along like a short sort of set of degrees. And so she doesn't really make lanes. As you can see here, the very first 2 waves of arrows already sort of just counteract each other, especially when the third one is like identical to the first. And so the lanes don't really exist. I try to stay underneath her, and pretty early on, you'll have to deal with these ones that just fall from the sky, which these are the main issue. You're essentially having to dodge 2 patterns at once, and it gets overwhelming fast. What I like to do is I just stay a bit above the bottom of the screen so that all the arrows disperse more, so the gaps are bigger. But if I have to like move down and around something to react to it, I have that availability. I don't want to be too high, but if I'm just bottom hugging, then I have a new issue. So I generally try to do this sort of wavy motion. If I have the free time, I'll move upwards. This one is it's mostly random dodging, and it's pretty rough. If you're going for like just a clear, bomb it. If you're going for like no bomb, no trance, I'd say still tough it through because you do not get like any resources. For third spell, she'll shoot this ring. This one's not hard at all. She'll shoot this ring, and then they'll all turn red. So they'll alternate from colors from blue to red whenever they land on something. Red is aimed at you. Blue will move along the path it just took. So let's take this one for example. It's moving down, and then it just moves back where it came from. And that's how it all works. Generally, I just try to stay in Nue's face for most of it. They'll usually come in like sets or like clusters, so you'll just have to work around that. It's not, it'll never be like I got walled, and if it did, then you might need to work on something. If it's that much of an issue, you can always route it because it is static aside from Nue's movement. So there's some slight deviations because she'll shoot out more bullets, and if she's a bit away from the wall, they'll be a bit off timing than what they'd normally be, but it's whatever. Fairies will spawn from the left and right, and you generally want to alternate sides to kill them as soon as possible so that they don't cluster the screen as much. And then Death Fairy will show up in the center. One on the right, and then one on the left. Generally want to just focus on killing these as much as possible. Then in pairs of 3, they'll show up on the left and right at the same time. Just take out one side, take out the other, stay on said side, or move over. Either works. And if you kill them fast enough, then there should just be nothing for when this guy shows up. This one will go down the center as usual. Then they'll come in 3 pairs of 2 on both the left and right. And what I prefer to do is I just rather focus on one fairy and then just dodge the other. Generally, they have a lot of health, so trying to actually move over to the other side is just not worth it. I'd rather just play it safe on the right side and just dodge the bullets diagonally. It's a bit uncomfortable, but it's not really much of an issue as long as you're actually speed killing the ones on the right. If you're going for just a clear, then just trance here, because this is where your resources will come from. So you just kill them as fast as possible, trance, get your resources. The first one will spawn like here, and then the next one will spawn a bit to the left of that, and then the third one will spawn a bit to the right of that. So just be wary of that, because if you're not underneath it, then you're not speed killing it, and so it gets scary. And then we get to Mamizo, and the main part of the stage, obviously. For this non, it'll just be, it'll push you to the right, and then it'll make you go to the left. It just summons these like hallways or columns you just have to go through, which isn't bad. The only thing is, for these lanes, make sure not to choose the wrong one. Like, let's say I go in this one instead of that one. This one's now moving over to the wall, and if I'm to just bottom hug like I am here, where it's more comfortable for this kind of attack, like the lane I chose, I just come out. With this one, I have to move up because this one's going to go hit the center. And if you choose it especially poorly, then you're really gonna have issues. I've died to it once, but it's still like, just be wary. Don't be dumb. This spell is completely consistent. She summons these guys, and then they'll just sort of spin and then move out. So I just try to stay under her, move to the left. Once this guy's off screen, I quickly dash over, move around the bullets down, and try to hit the bottom center before they shoot. You cut it close, but I mean, if you're doing the same thing every time, you'll always cut it close, but you'll never really get it wrong. And even then, even if you're a bit off, you can just start streaming early to play it safe. So then you do it to the right. Generally, this guy won't be off screen exactly when you move over, but it's not much of an issue. General thing is, you're just going to have to learn how to weave through the bullets to get back to the underneath bottom center. But aside from that, you'll be fine. This non is just, you have to move like left and then right, or right then left, and that's it. Nothing to really say about this one. You'll notice I'm running up to like, I'm running up unfocused. That's because Sanae sort of has a shotgun. So I just try to deal a bit of extra damage there. I'm not sure how well it works, but I think it's better than using your focus shot, which I'll get into that later, much later. For this one, generally, this is like a safe strat that I'm doing here, rather than the like speed kill strat. So what you're gonna want to do is just quickly try to deal as much damage as you can up here, and then move down, still trying to follow her. Once these dogs start moving in, move back up, try to dodge this wave, and then just do it how you normally want to do it, which is just stream them down, do a restream, stream them up, follow her best you can, and it should end there. With the other shot types, generally you just want to stream down, stream back up. The big thing is you want to start at the top, because you'll only have to do one restream normally, and the restream you want to do is down here, because these bullets are the dogs and they activate when they're aligned with you, and because they're falling from the top of the screen, there will be a gap, sort of like if you move straight down, like right here, if I move here and then immediately straight down, there's no bullets there to stop me, and so I just, like, there'll be this gap because when I move down, I'm not activating anything. But if I was to move up instead, I'm activating every single one of these bullets as they go along, and then I have to dodge through them, which will probably result in me moving down more, losing damage in several ways, and then having to just restream down. So restreaming down is much, much safer than doing it up. So now you just do it normally. Third non is very similar to second non. I don't really have much to say here. Just don't get yourself stuck against a wall. That's it. For third spell, she'll summon this ring of birds, and what I like to do is stay as high up as I can so that I don't actually have to dodge. Like, you'll see me go through the ring before they even transform. So all of this, I don't have to deal with. If you're at the bottom, you have to deal with everything she shoots out. If you're up here, all of this is just not going to touch you, and all you really have to worry about is the stuff above her and the ring itself. So you just want to try to stay underneath her as best you can. I like to move down when she shoots the ring so I get a better reaction to it. If the birds look bad, like they're going to block up a hole in the rings, like here, if you don't want to exactly be here, if it was more to like the right, it would be especially an issue. So you just want to be wary of this. So don't always try to be underneath her, because imagine if this was like shifted over and I was there, I'd be in a bad spot. So you just want to stay underneath her as best you can, but if not, just don't worry about it. Here, obviously you don't want to like spin it like this. Good luck if you can. It'd be kind of cool, not gonna lie. But you just want to move in these sort of diagonal lanes. Like, I look at this second wave and I say, alright, I'm gonna stay to the left of like the furthest down bullet, the one like right underneath her, and then I'm just gonna tap my way through this lane. And you just do this every time. It alternates the direction you have to move. For fourth spell, she shoots out these orbs, and then they'll turn into frogs. The general formation will always be the same, but the rotation of it is random. And that's the only random aspect to this attack, because the rice that the frogs shoot out are these like squares. Let me try to get a good image of it. This works, I guess. You can see this sort of square here. And this rice will always be in the same position when the frogs explode. And the main thing is just there are these gaps in it everywhere, above, below, to the left, to the right. These like corner gaps, and so you just have to. I don't know what I was saying. Like, because of these gaps, like if you want to play it aggressively, you can stay underneath or above one of the frogs, and the rice will just move all around you. Uh, Things to worry about is generally right here. You can see this one kind of hidden in the rice. That's about to come for me, so I have to dodge that. I have to deal with just bad RNG on the frogs. Generally, you have like three sort of scenarios. You have the one where you can just stay underneath, dodge pretty generally, just pretty safely. It's nothing too threatening. You have the ones where you have to line yourself up with the frog so that the rice they shoot will move around you. And then every once in a while, you just get a really bad formation. And for that, you just want to move off to the side. Generally, that won't happen. And generally, moving off to the side is bad because then you're losing a ton of damage. But if it's needed, then you want to prioritize living, obviously. Most shot types will be able to do this attack in just one wave. So it would die like right around now before you have to dodge anything. Sanae has to do like half a wave, but it's nothing. You barely still have to dodge. This non is a bit tricky. It's the same as the last one, except halfway through, it sort of shuffles, and so you have to be very aware of it and how it's about to like move. Because right here, the lane I chose is fine, because I have this nice gap, so I can just move to the left, and then just move through that one. But if I was say to the left here, the shuffle causes this lane to just be kind of messed up, and so I have to do a quick dash over and then proceed. Sometimes it's fine, sometimes it gets pretty nasty. You just have to be aware of it. You don't really know if you chose the wrong lane until it's too late. And then you'll have to shift lanes if it blocks up. Fifth spell is one of the more overwhelming and trickier spells. It's not too bad, but still have to work around it. So this dog wave is probably honestly the scariest part of it. It's just you just want to dodge one at a time, but sometimes it's just uncomfortable. And obviously you don't want to die right as it starts. These birds are just random. They'll all like spawn like generally the same way, but then they move all over the place, so it doesn't even matter. The dogs will aim at you now, rather than coming in that giant like wave. And then these frogs will always spawn in this square formation the exact same way, no longer like rotated like the last spell. And the rice they shoot at is the exact same too. And so the rice that you'll have to deal with during this spell will always be this exact same. And so generally you want to try to move up and down to sort of deal with the dogs. And then you just want to, when possible, just like get under Mamizo, deal some damage. If the birds line up poorly with the rice or the dogs move in an uncomfortable way, because despite being aimed at you, they still move up and down a bit. So if things look bad, just don't get greedy with your damage. Stay off to the side. Play it comfortable, and play it safe, and you should make it out on top. This non's a bit spooky, but you can see the red bullets create these lanes as they do with like all of her freaking attacks. And these blue bullets they may look random, but they are the same every time, generally. And so when you go through a lane, you can generally look for how you want to do it. You just do some sort of left-right movements, or right-left movements, or whatever. And it gets a bit scary because of the fact that how much you have to like move with the wave, with the lane, I mean. So it can get a bit tense there because of how fast you might have to move, but aside from that, it's not too bad because of how it's mostly the same every time. Here the people will spawn in the same exact ways every time, and they'll aim directly at you. So you start it in the center. I like to move off to the left. Doesn't really matter which way you move off, whether it's left or right. All this rice is aimed, so So the spell card is like can be made 100% consistent, and that's exactly what I do here. So I move off, and then when they shoot that wave, I move into either like this way, this hole or this hole, and over here it's essentially mirrored. So like this gap or this gap. So I move there, and then, oops, actually, that's my mistake. So yeah, I move over, and then they all shoot when they align with you, because that's just how the timing works. So you just want to quickly do a small tap up, and since they're all going to be horizontal, you can just, I like to unfocus here just to deal some like spread damage or whatever. It's nice with the Reimu because of homing. And so I just unfocus, and then I only have to do horizontal movements to get over here. The main thing is just this. Just don't run into that. Do the same over here. If you're underneath her and you have to wait for that wave, obviously just stay underneath her. But otherwise, just take it calmly. It might take a while sometimes, but just play it cool. And it'll end eventually. Unless you're at like 1 power, you shouldn't be like timing it out. Which if you're doing like NN or no bomb, no release, that's no bomb, no trance. I mean, that shouldn't happen. This is a scarier non than what we dealt with last time, because what we have to deal with now is how random everything is. So, as I mentioned with, I believe it was the 5th non, how it's similar to the 4th non, but it has like this sort of shift in it that causes the lanes to be blocked. This is essentially that, but it's way more common. And so a lot of the time, things just don't line up well. Like here, this is a bit nasty. You can just move over to the right. I move over to the left out of fear, and then I get that. That's like dead center. Not really, but especially if she's low, it's an issue. But it can be very mean. It's just get comfortable with needing to do like dashes and whatnot. Here is what I find to be the hardest attack in this fight, and this is what I alluded to during Nue's second spell. How there is something I find to be easier, but due to how far it is in the fight, it's significantly more annoying and difficult in a way. Because here, and now you've made it through everything. You've made it through like 8, 9, 10 minutes or whatever of the fight, and now you have to deal with the second hardest pattern. So everything will come in a set of like 2. You have a wave of birds, then a wave of dogs, and on the other side you'll get a wave of birds and a wave of dogs. And the main thing is, the dogs you can essentially do with just up and down movements because of just how they line up. The birds not so much. The birds will move pretty randomly, which can cause some terrible situations where you'll have to very quickly no focus dodge or no focus like dash to a more safe area. Sometimes it's comfortable, sometimes it's not. And I like to move against the gradient. Like, she's pretty far over to the right, despite me wanting to go over to the left, because then the next wave is going to spawn. And if you're underneath her as much as you can, the waves overlap. And you want to avoid dodging there at all costs. Then I move out. I dodge the waves. I try to move to the center as fast as possible. If you get lucky, then this happens. That she moves with you or whatever. But it's a matter of just don't dodge the waves at the same time. And just learn how to dodge it. Like I said, it takes a while. It's a pretty tanky spell card too. And you're probably gonna die to it. I lost runs to it 4 times. And one thing to mention for clears, if you die to Wild Deserted Island or anything beyond it, you cannot get back to max power. I don't think, at least. I certainly didn't. Maybe the power drops are a bit RNG, so maybe it's possible. But generally, no. You're gonna miss out on 1 more power. So if you die here onward, you're not getting anything back, which is a big issue for some shots. But for like no miss, no bomb, you're not gonna die. because that's the whole point of the run, so you'd be fine. Here, the lanes are spawned, and you just, the, like, red bullets or whatever will spawn just left and right. They'll alternate. So you just need to find out where the first one is spawning, dodge accordingly, and then just move left and right. The main thing is the lanes will, like, move a bit, either to left or right. So if they're moving to the right, your right movement to dodge the things in the lane need to be a bit longer than your left movement, because otherwise the lane's going to be moving and you're not moving with it. Here is Pseudo Exorcism. It's a very route heavy spell, so I'll go over what I do. So I move with her, right underneath her, and I follow her, and then I do this loop around. I deal a bit of extra damage right here with, like, my side options. I move up, dodge any, like, stray talismans that are right there. If you get hit by them, probably should have been paying more attention. Hit a loop around, and then I focus here. And then I move back. These shouldn't, like, get in your way. Maybe move down a bit. So her movement is the same as your focus movement, which is really nice. And also kind of an issue, because if you line yourself up, your focus shots are going to be consistently hitting her, but if you just hold left. If you're not lined up right, your shots are going to be consistently missing her if you're just holding left. So here, you want to make sure to line yourself up, and then you just want to hold focus, move along with her. You don't want to do unfocused restreams of these talismans, because these are all aimed. And you don't want to do these dashes to try and, like, misdirect them or whatever, because that honestly makes things worse. It makes things more inconsistent unless you can perfectly time that sort of thing. Hey, by the way, these frogs they're positioning static and they shoot randomly rotated yellow talismans. They're typically not an issue. So because I did this focus movement, as you can see here, these are going to start moving down. These haven't even aimed yet. And so there's going to be a gap here I'm going to go through, and then there's a gap here I'm going to go through. And so I just move through that one, move through that one. It's perfectly safe, and it's 100% consistent. While with the restream, if you were to do it, I don't know, like here or here, no, like here or here, you're going to get something different. And you also just lose out on damage. Here, I'm a bit misaligned with her. So I do a quick, like, dash just to... or at least I thought I did. Maybe it's later. So you keep just focusing on it. You move back. So after you go through those two gaps, you move to the right. You move to the left, similarly as you did before. You don't want to obviously keep following her right here. This is dangerous. So you just wait for those to start aiming downwards, and then you just try to squeeze up here. Move over. Do what you did before. Just keep following her, focused. The same sort of gap from the first time I mentioned it will be here. One big thing is, don't get greedy. If you keep doing just these focused movements as I mentioned, these gaps will always line up well. They won't be hard to dodge. They won't be uncomfortable. And you just want to make sure that you're living and that you're not going for something you shouldn't. Because if you hear her dying up here, and then you're like, oh, I'm gonna keep attacking up here, because just to end the spell card just a bit early, because it's got to be over soon. But she's still moving. These talismans will block your way. And so if you don't kill her up here and you got greedy, chances are you're just gonna die right here. So I play it safe, despite hearing the noise that that the pattern's almost done. I still go through with the movement. It dies soon after. I don't lose anything there, so it's just completely worth it to do that instead. I lose, like, I don't know, a couple seconds of spell bonus, which really isn't an issue. And now is a survival. For the first wave, you just want to go through each of these waves one at a time. And that's it. Just try to look for the best gap. Don't go for something you shouldn't. Then we get the birds. These four will shoot out a set of like 5 bullets. The main thing is you want to wait for them to transform. The bullets themselves are aimed at you, But that doesn't matter, because the birds that they spawn from them don't aim at you until they actually spawn. For this first wave, it's a bit uncomfortable because of how things line up. You're going to have to move over because of this wave. And so they'll aim like near the center, like that. But after that, you can just aim them as far left and right as possible. And you do what you did before, except you aim the birds. So you just move left, right, dodge one wave, dodge the other. This final phase is pretty much the exact same thing, except your horizontal space will slowly close up over time due to these guys. Aside from that, it's fine. Like, you just do this, nothing changes. I've seen some people do a vertical strat where they try to aim the birds up and down. Don't do that. Because then you'll have to dodge both waves of the dogs. And that is something you want to avoid at all costs. With this strat, the birds are consistent. The dogs are mostly consistent, but that's just a dodging thing. Doesn't have to do with really the lane closing yet. So you just do things normally, except you treat your far left and right as this wall. And right at the very end, with not even a second left, you're gonna have to dodge both waves at the same time. Maybe you could even, like, move up. Like, if you want to play it... Actually, let me see that. If you wanted to, theoretically, you could try to, like, hug, like, right here. If you don't want to try to dodge the waves. I haven't done that. I literally just thought of that. If you want to, you can do that. Otherwise, just try to dodge both waves at the same time. Try not to do it in the center. Try to do it a bit above, like, the center of each wave. That's where I usually do it, and I'm usually fine. I've never really died to it. So that last part's a bit tricky, but after that, it's just the final. And the final isn't too bad. The main thing is these glow orbs have really uncomfortable hitboxes. So chances of you getting clipped are high until you really get it down. So they sort of like crisscross. Like this bottom row is moving to the left while this top row is moving to the right. And they'll spawn these frogs. And what I like to do is I'll misdirect them heavily, like all the way over here, all the way over here, because they're about to shoot rice at me. So I just get them over here. So the bottom row and the top row will alternate directions each wave. If the bottom row is moving to the left, then I aim them. I aim the bullets to the right. If they're moving to the if they're moving to the right, I aim them to the left. If they're moving to the left, I aim them to the right. Because otherwise, let's say I aimed it to the left, but they're also moving to the left. Now I'm gonna have to move along with them to dodge while I'm moving towards the rice I just misdirected. So you just want to keep doing that. I like to like follow the bottom row very early on, just to prevent myself from dodging dead center. You don't want to dodge the orbs in the dead center. That's very dangerous. Just want to play it safe, play it good. Move along with them. You'll notice this sort of blue line on their health bar. That's when things get bad. So things will go normally. It'll pick up the pace over time. But once it gets past this blue line, or health, that's when it really gets fast. And that's when you're going to have to worry. But things will go as normal. I mess up here, because what have I been saying this whole time? Don't get greedy. That's exactly what I do here, though. So I do things normally. I misdirect poorly here, but I hear the damage thing. So I think I'm going to do it. But because it's sped up, the next wave's about to shoot at me. I have to move over to dodge the glow bullets. So this is all blocking me. Look at that health right there. Luckily, I don't mess up. I move through the rice. Make a scary dodge right there. And end right there. Let me just show that off in full. So yeah, that happens. Like I said, don't get greedy. Don't be me. This was like 50 minutes into attempts. Not even attempts. This was 50 minutes into just using Sanae. And I wanted to be done. This was longer than what Moth took me, and Moth was just the 6-shot types. I mean, Moth was 6-shot types. This was just 4. And this took me longer. But yeah, that's my general run through of the route and how you want to do things. I will go over some do's and don'ts that I've done. So let me mention that. So first is the aimed section, the aimed stage section that I mentioned. I do this differently with each character. So this section, I generally do what I do with Sanae at the start, but the homing really comes in handy. And I believe towards the end, unless I do it standard. Oh yeah, here I start spinning it. Oh no, I don't. I do it like that. One thing you can do is when it starts getting scary, you can do a sort of spin around the fairies because of the homing. So it'll take care of them when they're behind you. And that's nice. Another thing is a don't. Don't do pseudo exorcism like this. So I didn't really have a full route, which meant I sort of had a route, but the problem is it relied too much on the homing. So I lose out on DPS a lot. Which means the spell card lasts a while. I do the unfocused restream and misdirect, which is a bad idea, as I mentioned. You lose out on damage, makes things more uncomfortable. Well, it can make things more uncomfortable. Sometimes it's fine, sometimes it isn't. One thing I thought about at some point was if you really struggle with trying to kill this pattern, you could always try to time it out, because timing it out isn't difficult. But yeah, look at that. 58 seconds. Not only should it not last that long, especially with homing, but also this is just, don't do this route. Do what I showed with Sanae and mentioned with her, because everyone will essentially do that the same. Let me go over that aimed section again, but with Marisa. So Marisa had a different strat. Much stranger strat. And that was, so I took advantage of the fact that every other wave is aimed differently. First wave of fairies, it's aimed at you. So I start like, so as you can see in the background, there's this sort of like panel walkway. I start on this line right here at the bottom. So I lightly stream for the first ones. Those are aimed at you. Then they start shooting at 2. They aim away from you. 3 is aimed at you again, and I move every second shot they shoot. And then once the 3s are done, I just sit still, and all the 4s will aim around me. And that's that. There's nothing really else interesting about her. I had a close call on several spell cards. One big thing was I learned how to do this spell, Pseudo Exorcism with Marisa. I really drilled it into my head because my first run, I have 2 EXNNs with Marisa, but the first one I succeeded timed out this spell, and I wanted full spell, and so I did things differently. It's basically the same thing I do with Sanae, but it gets scary near the end. I don't think it's too necessary to show. I get a bit greedy here. Yeah, ooh, that happens. So yeah, there's that. Another thing is Youmu. So Youmu does really well against these first fairies, like the duo and the trio, because she can just sit in the center and then kill them. So with Youmu for this section, I stream. I move over to his side, wait for 2 of them to shoot, use the slash, 2 shoot, slash, 2 shoots, slash, 2 shoot, slash, stay still. I always stay still for the 4s because it's just, I have no reason to sort of misdirect them. And then the last thing I want to show here with character differences is Monstrous Tanuki School. So I mentioned that you want to be unfocused with the shots just to deal that extra sort of damage. I don't suggest doing it for Youmu. So instead, you focus and then your shot will be charged. So you do things the same, except you want to be more focused just so you can hit her with the slash. You're only really going to be hitting her with the last part, but you also want to release shift when you do the slash so that you can also hit her with the unfocused shots, so you deal more damage. That's a big thing with Youmu. Sometimes you want to, so with Yomu's shot, you hold shift and Z, and it'll charge it, and then once it's done charging, you'll hear like the charge sound effect will be gone. And to release the slash, you either have to let go of Z or shift. Shift is for more damage because you'll hit with some of the unfocused shots, depending on if you're gonna immediately start charging again or not. With Z is the safer one because if you do shift, you're gonna unfocus for a bit. I also think I should show off Pseudo Exorcism. So she gets it a bit lucky here. She has it nice. I do the same thing I do with like Marisa and Sanae. A big thing is, because of how the slash works, when she's moving up, you can hit her with more of the slash, dealing much more damage, which is shocking when she already does a ton of damage. And so you generally do, I like to still play it safe like I normally do, but I'll release slashes anytime it can deal damage. But if you're too low, then it just doesn't hit. I got greedy there, but it paid off. Sometimes you get greedy and it works, but most of the time you just shouldn't do it. And that is all I wanted to show for now. So let's move on to ranking all the characters, and I'll mention what's good and bad about them, and then I'll show all their runs in full. So I will see you there. So here we have Youmu. Now Youmu is by far, in my opinion, the best shot for this stage, and in general just 10 desires. So what's good about her? Well, the slash, her focus slash, does crazy damage. She could kill patterns nearly like half the time, 60% of the time that a shot like Reimu would do it. So she's incredibly good for that. She also has wide range on it, which means if you're just a bit to the left or right of the boss, that doesn't matter. You're still gonna probably hit, which is really nice for stuff like 3rd and 5th spell, because as I mentioned, for those 2 spells, if you need to move away from under the boss just to stay safe, you should do that. And here, even if you do that, you won't lose out on DPS as long as you're still continuously slashing. And for the first half of the stage, before Nue, she's really nice because she can just speed kill everything before they even shoot, so you don't really have to try that. So she has a lot of good things about it. I do have some gripes with her. One thing is vertical range. So while I mentioned the shot has wide range, it also has vertical range, so it won't just always reach the top of the screen. This is very important during the second half of the stage, Nue's second spell, and Mamizo's final, because you have to move upwards in order to deal any sort of good damage, which is very problematic. For the final, she doesn't kill it any faster than like Reimu or Marisa, but she has to put in more effort to do so. For Nue's second spell, you have to be higher up on the screen, making the pattern as a whole harder, thus giving a trade-off to that extra damage. And for the second half of the stage, which I also mentioned in the cons section, those large fairies at the end, are kind of annoying because they can tank a slash. And so you have to deal some unfocused slash, but then they come in pairs of 2 at the end, which means you can't reliably speed kill them super quickly. You don't really get that much out of it, which is an issue. But those are more minor gripes. The first vertical range one, with like how she performs on the final or Nue second, that's a pretty big gripe, and that's just my main one essentially. Although in a way, the last one is also my main one, which is how hard it is to get comfortable with her, to reliably slash fast, repeatedly, and well. That takes time, it takes effort, and it's something I still haven't even done. I could have performed better if I was more comfortable with it, but I'm simply not. And so I have my issues. I can't kill patterns as fast as I would like, or as fast as I should, which is why I really can't recommend this shot too much. If you're comfortable with Youmu, or you're willing to fully sit down and learn this shot type, then I absolutely recommend her. But if you're just looking to choose a good shot type and just learn the patterns and do what you need to do or whatever, I feel like the time it'll take you to learn this shot type is longer than is needed if you were to just do it with like a standard shot type. You just have to learn the patterns. You don't need to go through this extra hurdle of knowing how to use it efficiently. You can just use it, which is why it's hard for me to recommend this shot, which is why I would rather recommend the second best shot typically. But again, if you're used to Youmu, or you're willing to learn how to use her, then by all means use her. Another complaint, which I don't mention here because it's for more of a clear sort of thing, and that's power loss. So I mentioned earlier that if you die to Wild Desert Island, or anything beyond that, you cannot get back to max power. And so in this extra stage, you start off at max power, which means you don't really have to, if you're doing no miss no bomb, you don't have to deal with 1 power, 2 power, 3 power. You'll be at max the whole time, which is really nice. But if you're doing just a clear, chances are you're gonna die. And from Wild Desert onward is one of the hardest parts of the whole stage, which is very problematic, because when you lose power as Youmu, because you lose 1 full power each time you die, when you lose that power, you also lose more vertical range. If you're at 3 power, it's very hard to hit Marisa on the final. If you're at 2 power or 1 power, you're not hitting her with that slash, which means more unfocused movement if you want to kill it faster than normal. But that in itself is an issue, just making the spell card harder. And that's a big reason why, even though it's like she's kind of a struggle to use for NN, but she's very useful for a clear. Because of that power loss, I honestly just straight up don't recommend her. She's very usable, but she's very high risk, high reward. If you take the risk, if you lose, you die late on, if you miscalculate something, then you come into a very big issue where you just don't hit anything. You can't hit anything because you don't reach. So that's what I have to say about Youmu. Really good, bit of a struggle to use, but still by far the best. So let me show what a run looks like. And I warn you, like I said, I'm not very used to her, so it's not super optimized with like speed kills and whatnot, but I did my best. So here it is. So now we have Reimu. I believe her to be the second best shot type, and she's not. I don't really have too much to say about her. For the pros, the homing comes in handy. It's nice during the stage, and it's nice to get a bit of chip in on like first spell, Monster Tanuki School, or anything, or like the final, so that when you're not underneath the boss, you can just unfocus for a bit, chip a bit of damage on. It helps a decent amount. Small hitbox is really nice. Oh, not really. I haven't really noticed it too much, but she does have it, and I'm surprised because I'm gonna be honest, don't really notice it too much, but I mean, it's might as well notice it. It's nice for when you do like a stupid dodge, but most of the time it's not like super useful. But that's just, I mean, it's not a bad thing. It's a pretty nice thing, but nothing too insane. I mentioned that she's comfortable, and that's to sort of compare her to Youmu, because Youmu takes a while to learn. She takes a while to get comfortable with. With Reimu, you just kind of jump in, you use her shot. She's pretty nice. I don't have any cons for her, which is the funny thing. I don't really think there's anything bad about her, but the thing is, with Youmu, it's like she has that crazy damage, so if you can learn her, she's super good. She has downsides, but the pros heavily outweigh the cons. Here, Reimu doesn't necessarily do anything bad, it's just that Youmu does stuff better. And the only reason why she's this high is because she's just comfortable. She doesn't have anything bad about her, but she's not like really bad. She's not bad, she's not like fantastic, but she's usable. She's comfortable, she works. So if you were to go for a clear, or you don't want to use Youmu, I'd recommend just using Reimu. She works, she does stuff well, and yeah, don't really have too much to say about her. So let's just get on with the run. And here we have Marisa as the third best shop type. Now, Marisa is. She doesn't really have much that's bad about her again. Like, she's nothing. She has no real issues. I just don't see her being better than Reimu. So, here she is. Her pros are basically just. She has some good damage. And that's both a good thing and a bad thing, as on the cons we have distance-based damage. And it's very strange how it works. Basically, what I thought originally was the closer you are to the boss, the more damage you do. That's not really the case, sort of. If you're right in front of the boss, that's when Marisa does the most damage. If you are way below at the bottom of the screen, Marisa does alright damage. But if you're in like a middle ground, if you have like a mid-distance to the boss, that's when she has the worst damage, which is bizarre. It means that sometimes you need to find the strange middle ground on different spell cards. Do you want to be right in their face? Do you want to be way at the bottom? Trying to be in between will just result in less damage because you just do less damage for some reason. The other con I have is just forward focus shot. It's nothing huge. It's just she can be a bit annoying on the stage. I showed off my cursed strat for the section before Niue. I don't think that's necessary, but it's what I did because I thought it was necessary. And you also just have to deal with you can't really get a lot of chip damage on like Reimu can, or even Youmu with that range. She just doesn't have that. She'll only really hit in front of her unless you count the lasers, the side lasers, you know, because those do nothing. So yeah, not much to say about her. She's good, but she's not stellar. She's alright. So let me go on with that run.
So last, but very least, we have Sanae for the worst shot in extra. Surprise, surprise. So Sanae is just not very good. She doesn't really have anything for her aside from the funny face. Some very big issues she has is her damage is worse than everyone else's, and for her focused shot, she has these like, I don't know, like wave things that move like in a wave shaped pattern, and they can just straight up miss the boss, which means you get even less damage than your already not so stellar damage. She has like a sort of unfocused shotgun, which can do something. It's not great, but it's something. The spread on her unfocused doesn't really do much because of how weak it is, which is a case for most spread shot types. But on like something like Mountain of Faith Reimu C, the shotgun isn't very heavily rewarded. It's not even really possible to hit all the shots, I don't think. And so she's not very good. She doesn't have anything for her. She's easily the worst. She did take me the least amount of time to do, but I also did her last, so that's to be expected. Not much else to say. She sucks. She could be worse. The thing is, similar to, I'm gonna keep referencing Moth. For like Marisa A, she sucked for extra, but she wasn't too awful. She wasn't good, but it could have been worse. That's kind of what Sanae's like. She's not terrible, but she's not good either. She doesn't have any real merits. She doesn't have anything over the other characters. And so let's go see why exactly that is. And so now let me just give some closing thoughts and some final stats. So for how long stuff took me, Reimu took me a total of 6 hours. This is all including practice, by the way. Both Marisa and Youmu took me 4.75 hours. And then Sanae took me a whole 15 minutes. 50, not 15. In total, from what I counted with all my VODs and whatnot, it was about 17 and a half hours that all of this took me. Some interesting things to note is Marisa was my first. No, what am I saying? Not my first. I did Marisa in the same one that I did Reimu in, but it wasn't full spell. So I went to do it again later, and then I did a Youmu run in that same stream, which was the farthest I've gotten a run that died, which was to the survival. And then next stream I got the Youmu run, and then I started Sanae. And Sanae, during practice, I did Mamizo NNN, full spell too, obviously. And so I just did my run soon after, and I got it within like 3 attempts. It was rather fast, to say the least. As for runs lost to stuff, I did lose a run to, what was it, Monstrous Tanuki School as Marisa. And that was the only time I ever died to it throughout all this time of trying to do everything. And then, so for Wild Desert Island, I lost a run to that 4 times. That could be wrong. I kept forgetting I actually had this kind of stuff on the stream, so I forgot to count certain things. For 8th spell, I died to it twice. Once was actually dying to it, and another one is when I accidentally timed it out. And then there was my Youmu run to the survival. So overall, this definitely took me longer than Moth and was harder, but I'm done with it now. I did it. This wasn't too bad. I'm running out of the easier extras. Soon I'll be doing PCB, which will be a double between Extra and Phantasm, which will be a rather long video. And after that will be UFO. This one I was very glad to work on Extra because prior to this, I had done Lunatic, and I'm really bad at 10 Desires Survival when you have bombs and trances. I can dodge some patterns. Not a 1cc setting though. Sorry about that. I just recorded this last thing in one take. So, I mean, it was fun. Again, like I mentioned last time, trying to edit stuff together was a pain. It was less of a pain now because I know what to do. And so I'm sticking with the style that I do. Generally, most stuff didn't give me too much trouble. I did Sanae pretty fast. Reimu wasn't too bad. A lot of it was practice. Youmu and Marisa drove me up the wall though, because Youmu was a pain to use for me because I just can't use her. And Marisa because I got the run, but it wasn't full spell. So I then spent more, like an extra at least 2 hours grinding for it. And it's funny because despite I say Yomu's the best, but she also took me like essentially the longest if you don't count if you do count that when it wasn't full spell for Marisa. And then Reimu was actually learning stuff. I did Youmu 3rd, and it was an experience. That was the first time I seriously used Youmu. I've used her like a few times, but never to like very good degrees. Like there was my normal 1cc to actually unlock her. I don't know why I'm yawning so much. And then there was me playing Lubak, but that was like strictly messing around with Extra, and it was mostly Youmu Eagle anyways, whose slash is garbage, so it was mostly unfocused dodging. Can't wait to get to that one. Oh boy. What else do I want to say? I hope this helped. I like making this, sorta. I like just that type of thing in general. Not only to get my ideas and strats out there, in case it helps someone, or just to, it's a showcase and a guide. It's also for me to just show off the stuff I've done. And I do plan on doing this for like every single extra stage except PUFV because that's really boring. I'll do at least a showcase for that one, but don't know how much I'd put into effort. I'd be like, yep, you stall out everything. Bye-bye. So I'm trying to think of what I want to say. I'm not really sure. Hopefully this does well. Hopefully at least one person watches it. Doing the runs was fun. I really liked this extra. The stage portion, I originally was very unhappy with when I first did my clear, but now that I've learned it, I like it more. Nue is still a massive pain. Second spell is the bane of my existence. And Mamizo I've definitely gotten way better at because in my original clear I also capped none of her spells, and now I've capped all of them in runs at least 4 times. It feels good to like spend time learning how to do all these attacks, and that's why I mainly do it. It's fun. I like the puzzle aspect of trying to do everything and also consistently. It's not like super long, but it's also like it's stressful because it's like decent. It's still decently long. It's not like I'm doing stage 4 of whatever game, and then it's like, because that would be like, oh, it's like 3 to 4 minutes, and then PCB's like 7 minutes or 8 or something. But here it's like, it's at least 11 to 12. Some of the longer extra stages are like 14 minutes, which it grinds on you. It's like you spend some time working towards it, and it's like, oh, I'm getting closer to the end. It doesn't help when the final spell is like the hardest thing in the fight, like in or at least one of the last attacks, because it's always like for Flandre it was QED, for Suiko it was Sewer War, for Raiko it's probably gonna be Pristine Beat, for Saki it's probably, well, it's at least gonna be either Muscle Explosion or the final, depending on shot type, which is both of them are late into the fight and both of them suck. I think I'd actually, I'm not sure which one I want to do after UFO. I'm thinking Wabak. I'm thinking it's time I really just go in deep. Try an extra that for all shot is going to actually be like a real challenge. Because there's 2 shots that will both be like a massive pain in the neck. And you know what? I'll be sure to do them last. Actually, I was thinking that as I go along doing them, that I just use like a random generator to say like which shot I do next, because I think that would make it more interesting, because I basically just go from what I think is the easiest to what I think is the hardest right now. I mean, that's kind of boring in a way. It definitely creates this sort of progression of getting harder, but also it's like this kind of stuff happens where I go to the shot that I think is the hardest or whatever, or the hardest that I haven't done in the case of like USD, and then I do it in like 20 minutes. And so I'll probably do that whenever I'm definitely going to do it when I do Phantasm. I've already done all the extra shots, EXNNN. Those didn't take me long. I'll probably, for Phantasm, just randomly say who I'm going to do next, because, I mean, I know that freaking stage like the back of my hand, so it should make for it to be a bit more interesting, instead of just going like, this shot took me 1 try, this shot took me 1 try, this one took me 3, because that's what's happening with extra. I'm working on PCB LNB right now, which it's going decently. I haven't really done too much towards it since I've been like making this video and dealing with work and school and getting a keyboard that works. There's one thing for this stage is my keyboard broke, and so I had to get a new one, but I did that after I already did all these runs. Basically, if I'd hold Z for too long and if I let go of it, it would keep shooting despite me not actually holding it, which I thought was the game's issue for a while, and then I tested it and no, it's just my keyboard was broken. One thing was, maybe that's why Yomu's run was hard for me, because I had to release shift no matter what instead of releasing Z to unleash the slash, which is an issue at times because you don't always want to release Shift because then you go unfocused. Like, it would probably make Wild Desert Island way easier, but here I am. I did it anyways. So there's that issue. Probably not gonna go back to it to figure it out, but you know, I did my work. That's about all I have to say. Hopefully I can get this out soon. Premiere's been a bit weird with like audio right now. For the runs, I have to keep pausing and unpausing to keep it going. So hopefully this will come out when I want it to, and it'll be fine. Please. So yeah, anyways, see ya later. Next guide / showcase will be on PCB, Extra, and Phantasm, and it'll be like hopefully not twice as long as this one, but there's a big chance because it's 12 runs. So yeah, until then.